Welcome to KillerPHP.com. I'm Stefan Mischuk, and in this video tutorial we're going to learn about functions. Functions are one of the fundamental constructs, one of the fundamental tools found in the PHP programming language. Functions actually are such an important part of any programming language that just about everyone I've ever used, and that's about 8 or 9 now, include functions. So what exactly are functions? Functions are essentially code wrapped up in a package, if you will, or in a box, and that box is given a name, the function name, so that you can then use that box of code, that packaged container of code, in and around all your PHP scripts. Oftentimes people will create functions and store them in a library that they can then use in all their PHP projects. So, for example, let's say you wrote some nifty PHP code that validates an email address, for instance. So instead of having to cut and paste the same code over and over again in different parts of your pages, all you would do is create a function out of that code, and I'm going to show you how to do this in this video. And then you could stick this function inside of a library page and then reuse that code very easily. Besides making your own functions, your own custom functions, PHP comes with thousands, literally thousands of built-in functions that you can use in your PHP code right away. The fact that PHP has so many built-in functions is one of the reasons why PHP is such a powerful language. There's just so much for you right out of the box, if you will, that you can use right away. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this video by looking at some of the built-in PHP functions. We're going to learn how to use them, how to call them. That's what the nerds will say when they're actually using PHP functions. And we're going to learn some of the nuances about them. And once we've used one or two PHP functions, one or two built-in PHP functions, we're actually going to learn how to build our own PHP functions from scratch, and we'll take it from there. The first thing we're going to look at is what a function basically looks like from the user's perspective. So what you're going to have typically is the name of the function and a pair of brackets, and then you end it with a semicolon. And that's essentially what a function will look like in terms of its name as far as a user's perspective. When you're building a function, it looks a little bit different. So let's actually get into a real function, and you're going to see it in action. It'll be much clearer then. So here's a function called string word count, and what it does is it counts the amount of words in a string of text. So I'm just going to cut in a piece of text, and here it is. So that's the function. Now if we just leave it like this, nothing's going to happen because we're calling the function, and what I mean by calling is we're using the function. Calling is the nerd term that you use when you're actually using a function. So this is, let me back up. This is one of the built-in functions in PHP. There are thousands of them. And this one basically counts how many words you have in a string of text. So here it is. Now, what this will do is count the words and spit back a value. Now, when a function gives you back a value or gives you a result, this is called the return, or the function is returning a result. So, you know, and think of it as returning back to you or something like that. I can't, well, that's the best analogy I can come up with. Anyhow, so how do you use that? So let me just show you how we can do this. So let's create a variable. I'm just going to call it result. Now we could call it anything we want, but I'm just going to call it result. So I know that this string word count function will count the words and give me back a number. Will return a number with the, of course, the count of how many words you have in the string of text. So let's just echo that out by echoing out the variable result. Oops. And we'll close that. So let me just save that, and we're going to launch the browser now and see what the result is. So here we go, 11. So PHP has been able to determine using the string word count function that there are actually 11 words in this sentence. So let me just take out a few to make a point, refresh the page, and now there's only 5 words in this string of text. So we've learned a couple of things here. We've learned that functions come in this structure. We have the name of the function followed by the brackets, and you've got to end it off with a semicolon. And you've learned that functions can sometimes, and often do, return a result that you can capture. Now I could have captured it, I captured it this time rather inside of this variable, but I could have just as easily done this, because PHP is very, very flexible, and it still works. And to just prove to you that add another word. Though we could have done it this way and gone directly, it's kind of messy. If you look at this code here, it's kind of messy, and it's just a lot cleaner to actually grab the return results from this function, stick it in a variable, and then use the variable here to actually print out the results. The next thing that we've been introduced to about functions is what's going on between these brackets that follow every function. And this stuff in here has a particular name, and it's called the arguments. So what does that mean? In a nutshell, functions can be given instructions in terms of what to do. So depending on the function, it's gonna have different instructions that you can provide. Sometimes you have to provide these instructions, sometimes you don't. These instructions, which are included in between these two brackets here, that you insert in between these two brackets, are called the arguments, of course. So for the string word count, it is looking for the string to count the words, right? So now I could have done something like this, of course. Words equals, and grab this, and then stick the variable in here, and then I just refresh the page. It's going to work, of course. Again, what's in between the brackets follows the name of the function is something called the arguments. Now, sometimes you don't need arguments, most of the time you do, and how the arguments are formed really depends on the function. So to make that point clear, we're going to actually revisit a function we were introduced to in our forms processing video, the mail function. And that function is again a built-in function in PHP that allows you to easily send email.